Okay, so I think with that, mainly, I think before we start the entire GB pricing, before I pass on to Brandon, I'll just emphasize on the entire big picture of GB, actually why we actually choose to run back Global Volunteer for this peak itself. So main thing here is, okay, I present my screen, it's easier, wait, okay. So main thing here, why we actually chose to run GB is because of, if you know, I actually started GB quite a long time. And it's also one of the things that, if you know, GB is actually considered as ELD, which is experiential leadership program. And right in the past few years, we actually keep on running A1. So right now, because of we are coming back to post-pandemic, we choose to actually resume back ELD so that we can able to deliver a more complete Isaac experience to our youth. So you can see our past performance actually reached a peak in 2018, where that time is also where in 2019 it stopped and we actually stopped operating GB directly. So mainly, I think right now we choose to run GB because of we think that is the demand is there and we think that this is something that beneficial to grow this organization for a long term. So I think this is just a reference for past performance and so what we actually trying to achieve in the growth path. But main thing I think I want to emphasize on just to let everyone to clearly know how to show a quick glimpse of how Global Volunteer works, right? So first thing first, everyone need to know that GV is considered as one of the ELD, which is Experiential Leadership Development program as part of the Isaac experience. And regardless that what we do, like for example, YSF, AY event, and also like even MYB, right, it's actually considered as AY initiative. So that we're actually being converted to ELD in the future. And that's why also we want to deliver this entire experience to our youth. And Global Volunteer, not just Global Volunteer, but also Global Talent, Global Teacher, and also membership is actually considered inside here. So the entire value proposition of GV is definitely it is much more closer to the entire Isaac way itself because of we actually deliver closer things to actually we have cross-cultural experience, we have a lot of challenging environment so they can develop. At the same time, I think it's also contributed to SDG as well. So you can refer to partner, but I think main thing I want to emphasize here is if you are not familiar with entire standard of GV itself. So mainly I think it might be very new to this term, which is like home entity, host entity. So I think just to bring up the entire picture, right? For if you're actually resuming OGV, we actually will be part under we will actually running home entity itself. So host entity will be IR, which is the IGV from other country, not from our own country itself. So we will be actually responsible to actually coordinate with the youth and also UR, whereby I will actually coordinate with the opportunity provider. So if you actually see entire this picture, right? The standard that as home entity, which is as OGB, we should actually be responsible on is actually personal goal setting, outgoing preparation, insurance, and also debrief with Isaac. So basically, that's a new thing about insurance because of they're actually going out of the country. That's why this is some one of the criteria to actually fulfill. Other than that, for host entity, most of the things are actually similar, which it will which just add on with the standard of visa and work permit. And also arrival pickup, I think is already included if we actually run hybrid MIB project. We also have accommodation, income preparation seminar, and then I think also we have to make sure first day of work alignment with opportunity provider. We have the job description and minimum working hour. Lastly, also we have like duration, opportunity benefits, and departure support. So main thing here as OGV, if you're actually resuming OGV, right, our role of OGV is to actually take accountable on the IR to deliver all this standard to our EP, whereby for our role is to make sure all these standard deliver, which is standard 1, standard 2, and standard 3, and standard 16. So I think that's the very quick introduction about GV. So I think also to show up everyone that why we actually talk about these things is also we want to finalize the entire pricing because of this pricing will actually affect on how operation and how the revenue stream coming in next term. That's why I think we are doing this research and doing this entire analysis to show to everyone here. So for if you actually based on the latest data, which is on the OGB youth survey, right? Main thing here, we actually not yet fully conducted all the youth survey because of the response is not a lot yet. But this is basically we based on this entire response from each of the different uni, and we consolidated that right now, which are the pricing that actually much more suitable. The youth are more preferred in different mode. So I think based on these things, later on, Brandon will actually share about how the entire pricing works and then how this thing actually works as the data to support on the entire pricing. So I think until here, probably I will pass on to Brandon. Yeah. Brandon, you want to share your slide or you want me to help you share? Okay.
Just give me a sec. All right. So I think before we go to the next part, do you guys have any question prior we go to the sharing of the entire pricing analysis? If cool, you can actually put a wave in the chat box. Yeah. All right, nice. I saw there's a lot of wave there. So I think prior to go into the analysis of like how OGV pricing model, right? So I think based on the latest companion of January 2023, you can actually see that outgoing volunteer based on per EP, like the external youth is actually 600 ringgit per person. And also like if I say it's our IXP, integrated experience, meaning that for our membership, it will be actually 300 per EP. And then that is basically the entire OGV pricing model for the current legislated pricing lah. So I think to go on to the pricing analysis, right? Basically, we actually come out like few scenarios. So basically, this research has been done even prior Blossom or Blossom term. So basically, there's a problem statement that come out with a scenario that like let's look into the current OGV pricing, whether is it able to sustain the LC. So basically in past few terms, right, we're actually using the level of sustainability to actually measure like how this product or even this like how this product actually contribute towards the sustainability of the LC itself. So basically there are certain levels. There are level 1, level 2, and also 0. So that is also the indication of like the terms inside the slide itself. So basically we'll talk about numbers in the 1 to 0, then you can just referring to here. So basically if let's say we are unable to sustain the LC based on the OG revenue, then it will basically meaning that you can see like if the product in level 1 and level 0, meaning that this scenario 1 is actually valid. Then which means that if this scenario is valid, meaning that it will lead into like us want like increase the price lah. I mean and the thought process. Yeah. And then if let's say the scenario 2 is like, let's say the current OG pricing is unable to support in terms of like LC develop and also penetrate the market, then we will actually have two kind of like things that we need to see. So first one is like to look into like whether there's a relationship of product performance growth versus the product direct cost. This is just to understand whether there's a direct contribution cost towards the performance result, as well as like the product performance growth versus the product direct and also indirect cost. So the B part is more like to understand whether the increment of the cost coverage will also due to the product performance. So if let's say all these are actually valid, then we will basically look into like the no affection and also has affection. So basically these are the table that we will look into it, and after that we will actually see whether like all the data and then look into like whether is it lead into a pricing increment itself. So far before we go to the next part like in detail, I want to ask, is there anyone like wouldn't be able to get like the scenario mapping first? Yeah. Yeah, you can put a wave if let's say you are cool. Yeah. And if you need any clarification, you can voice out. Digesting. Yeah. Okay, so do you guys need a bit of time to digest before we proceed to the next part, or how? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we will give like a buffer time to go through the slide before we go through the data that we have analyzed. Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, actually, I have a question. For the scenario number two, actually, I'm not quite understand like the investment part. Is that what does it mean? Yeah.
So like investment will be basically something like towards like your physical attraction and etc. towards your operation. Yeah. Yeah, so like for example, like back then when you run physical attraction for OGV, right, you will actually set up your booth and then you'll print pamphlet. You will have like I think previously they also do like digital marketing. So social ads, all these are actually considered as an investment. Yeah, and that is basically the cost for OGV. More on attraction for youth. Yeah. Yep, I saw Joey is with. Rihanna is with. EMA is with. So I think we have more than 3%. Maybe I can proceed and you guys can stop me when you guys are very clueless or like you need me to re-emphasize certain things. All right, definitely like when coming to the analysis outcome, right, all this data is not like the most recent data that we have because as OGV is not the product that we're actually running at the moment because our main product that we are running right now is actually NYV, which is actually our own entity and one initiative. Hence, all this data actually those data that are being collected pre-pandemic, which is before even before MC Blossom, which is MC Core. All right. So if let's say you see the data, right? So this is actually to just justification on in terms of like how is time like we have like the product to be able to sustain. So you can actually see on this right hand side here is actually in green color. So when you have a product sustainability tool means that the LC is actually running the product in a very sustainable way that's still able to sustain the LC itself. I mean, this product is actually bringing gross profit towards the LC. Whereas when you see on the data, right, from March 2019 to even July 2020, right, you can actually start to see that there are more and more LC are actually falling into LC sustainability. OG sustainability, the product 1 and also even 0, and that actually bring a huge kind of like effect in terms of the overall on how the entire OGV sustain in terms of the entire AM. And then you can actually go to the next slide and see. So basically, this is a bit of like the raw data that we're able to get like in terms of like the data from March 2019 to February 2020. And then eventually you can actually start to see that in April 2019 to March 2020, that is starting to have dropping. And then slowly you can see that it's more and more LC that actually joining the troop of like in the product sustainability of 1. And then eventually you can actually see in the last slide here, you can actually see that there are also like LCs that actually in product sustainability 0. And I think that time the MC do actually do a pricing analysis of like if let's say we are to increase the price to 700 or even 800, how would the entire LC's product sustainability analysis. So like we can actually see that if let's say we increase to 800, right, then basically there will be lesser LC will be in the 1 or even 0 product sustainability of OGV. So that is basically for the first scenario itself. So basically you can actually see that the outcome here when we do the entire analysis, you can actually see that until February we have level 2. But February onward, we actually have only level 1 sustainability. So this actually after done this entire scenario kind of mapping, scenario one is basically valid when looking into this entire thing. And when we are looking into the scenario two, right, if let's say current OGV pricing unable to support LC in developing and penetrating the market, right, you can actually see that this is basically the data that we collected from October 2018 up to April 2020 itself. So you basically can actually see that 7 out of 13 that LC sustainability is actually lower than the OGV sustainability. You can actually see the back then the data, and taking into the consideration of the OGV that that time they would like to pioneer the new market for the future expansion. This actually lead into the inability for the product profit, because eventually, like when you run OGV, right, you still need to actually invest towards the attraction when you want to penetrate new market or etc. So hence, actually, scenario two is actually valid based on that particular when back then when we run the OGV RE basically, and that definitely like here is also some of the kind of like data that we're able to collect to show you guys in terms of like what will be the direct exchange cost, and also like what are the main entity affiliation fee that LC need to pay in order for them to run this product itself. And also you can actually see in the next slide is basically mentioning about like when the scenario 2A is, let's say we are to run this scenario, product performance growth versus the product direct cost. So we can actually see that this scenario is actually valid for 2A, because the result, despite the fact the result is not significant, but there is also an assumption that made that if let's say the effect of increasing the expenses from 2018 lead to result of 2019 to be higher drop of the expenses itself. So you can basically see that there's a drop in 2019 itself. And then looking into 2B, right, product performance growth versus the product direct and also indirect cost, you can actually see that what the time they have come out a conclusion is like if the performance is basically directly affecting the cost average, meaning that other products are not actually
Brandon.
Oh shit. Oh shit, I actually muted. How long have I been muted? Feels like. Which slide? Sorry.
I think after 2A, scenario 2A.
After scenario 2A. Okay. I'll go back to scenario 2A. So sorry. Not too sure why is it muted. So for scenario 2A, right? Yeah. So for scenario 2A, if let's say despite the fact we actually see that there is not actually a significant for this particular kind of like scenario, right? But there is actually an assumption made that there is actually effect of increasing expenses from 2018 linked to the result of 2019 actually dropping in terms of the expenses. Whereas for 2B wise, basically the performance is actually directing affect the cost average, and then meaning that other product might not be at the mature state. Therefore, there's a need of OGV to support more in terms of covering the indirect cost that the LC has to sustain back then in 2019 itself. So by looking into the two scenario that we have, right? So this is basically come out an outcome that is also support that there is a need of increment for the OGV product pricing based on all the data that we're able to collect back then in year 2020 until prior then. So before we go to the market analysis, I know this is a very heavy kind of like a lot of data and also like a lot of inferences. Definitely like there is in need of like time for you guys to digest. But yeah, before we go there, like any clarification needed like before we do the like macro environment kind of like analysis as well. Yeah. Definitely you ask me like how can we like get the best analysis or whatsoever, right? It is very hard for us to get the best analysis because like back then, since 2020 until now, we have not even run any OGV realization. Hence, it's very hard for us to get the latest context of like how can we do the best cost analysis, or even like how can we do a better OGV pricing scenario mapping. So whatever that we can do is like only collect the context that we have from past MC term, as well as getting as much as the data that we have to do any of the analysis lah. So that is what we can do at the moment only. Yeah. Yeah, if let's say you guys are okay to proceed, you can give me a wave. Yeah. All right. So I think we have more wave coming in. So I think I will proceed to the next part. So just now what we actually presented is called the internal analysis. So meaning that we are just using data from finance, which is the GFB, Global Finance Board data. Whereas now I'm going to present data that are based on external, which is called the macro environment analysis. All right. So for macro environment analysis, so we basically are conducting the market analysis. So I believe just now, Liang Jun is also presented the data that we collected from the Youth Survey 2023. But here are some of the things that that I have conducted. And all this analysis that we are done for the macro environment is also aligned with the Global Finance Board. So basically, we are using the new pricing tool that actually suggested by the GFB lah. So basically, when we actually doing the analysis, right? So one of the things that we'll be using is actually called the purchasing power parity. So basically, this is actually measuring like how is the growth development, how the growth development of a country, as well as the purchasing power of the external youth, or even like youth or like even the customer in general. So these are the things that we will be looking into it. So you can actually see that in the next slide, we basically actually capture the current Malaysia purchasing power parity conversion factor of like the 2021. So you can actually see that there is actually a spike increase of the what's that called, the GDP PPP per capita group. So it's basically actually a 0.4. Despite the past few years, there is a drop on that lah. So I think there's also like some description that I have copy and paste that you can actually refer to at here. But I think beside using this GDP PPP, right? Other than that, we also do look into like how the current external factors like were also affecting in terms of the price. Looking into the inflation of Malaysia, like the rate from even 1984 to 2023 itself. So basically, in 2023, you can actually estimated an increase of 2.81% of inflation. So which is mean that there is in need of increasing the level of price for the goods and services. So basically, after looking all this percentage of the changes, right, for the rates, right, then there is also a need of like our product pricing adjustment to be happen as well. So next slide is like basically, beside talking about inflation, we will also talk about human development index as well. So basically, human development index is basically looking into like how long is a person can live, and also like how they are being knowledgeable, and also like how to have a decent kind of standard of living. So based on what we're able to get is like from the UNDP kind of website, we're able to see that basically currently Malaysia are actually ranking number 61 and also having the HDI value of 0.804. So if let's say to convert this value into what GFB actually looking at, GFB actually categorized this number at group 3 itself. Then comparing ourselves to other Asia Pacific kind of region countries, right? I would say that actually Malaysia are actually in the average kind of like country in the mid of like all of the Asia Pacific country itself And basically, when looking into like the grouping of GDP, PP, and also HDI, so this will be the categorization from the Global Finance Board itself, like how they actually put us into groups and also like come out a calculation itself lah. So basically, when looking into that, you can actually see that HDI we actually in group 3, and then like in GDP, PPP, we actually in group 3 as well. So basically, that is for the Human Development Index and also GDP, PPP lah. So after that, when we got all these numbers and everything, right, we basically would throw it into a tool called the like a pricing tool that we have. And then after we insert that, we basically able to see that like with the current euros, right? I mean, like this is the entire, it's a formulated tool, and then it will basically come out an amount for us. So basically, based on the PPP, right, it actually around 605.68. This is the current price that we actually have in the compendium. So it's actually quite accurate. And then when we actually put in, then it will basically reverse the adjusting of the PPP, and then it will come out another new pricing, which is 737. So you can actually see that it's actually a difference of the pricing already lah. And then when looking into the pricing analysis based on the PPP and using the 0.4 PPP conversion factor for 2023, it will actually convert the pricing around 800 plus of the pricing. Hence, looking at the macro environment analysis, actually it support in terms of the increment for OGV pricing itself. And also when matching all the analysis of the macro environment analysis back to the youth survey output, we can actually see a general acceptable of like how the youth look into our youth market analysis, how our youth for our OGV, what's it called? OGV pricing. So you can actually see that we actually have a range between 800 to 1,400 for a comp to be covered. And we also have like a range between 800 to 1,600 for a comp plus the transport covered. And also you can actually see that if let's say that it's a food covered, then it will be around 800 to 1,400. But if let's say, generally speaking, like if let's say to cover everything for the entire OGV experiences, it will look into around 1,006. So it's generally acceptable kind of pricing that we're able to get from that target pool of like youth survey is around 800 to 1,600. So basically like based on the entire pricing analysis and also like the macro environment, it actually showed that like generally speaking that our external youth, they are generally acceptable with the pricing that if let's say we are to increase the price. So basically that is pretty much about the entire research, but definitely when coming to devising the entire pricing model, we will basically look into like the LC term 2019 as a benchmark. So you can basically see that the entire expenses that LC will have for OGV is basically around 60%. And also like the MC kind of like expenses, like when we invest back to LC to run this OGV product is around 39.95%. So when coming out the entire new product contribution for this entire thing, we actually look into the outcome of the MC expense will be around 39.95%. So we actually take into just the previous is around 30%, and if I'm not mistaken. So the new kind of like product contribution will be around 37.5% if let's say we are to amend the pricing itself. And to give everyone a bit of like comparison between the current and the proposed OGV pricing. So basically this is the entire, this will be the current pricing, as well the orange color will be the new pricing that we will be proposing. And you can actually see the product contribution side. The gray color is actually the current existing one, and the orange is actually the new pricing itself. So that is how the entire comparison, as well as you can actually see the new proposed OGV pricing in a simpler way in this and in this table itself. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much for the entire presentation. So now I think we can go a bit of like the Q&A, and also like maybe you have any concern that you wish to raise or provide any input, you can also unmute yourself.
Hi, Brandon. Hi, Liangjun. I have a question, but then I don't have edit access to the slide, so do you just want me to say it? Okay, I'll type my question. Thanks.
I think just now I saw that Ian you have typed a question, right?
Yeah, I'm asking about the fees breakdown, but I noticed that it's actually stated in slide 58, right? For the fees breakdown.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just would like to ask, like, because from the youth survey responses, I didn't saw that any youth response from East Malaysia. So would like to ask, like, why? I mean, like, also, like, this is just my concern now. Like, how are we going? Is the youth from East Malaysia is able to accept the prices also, or
I
you
think
are targeting from West Malaysia first for the GV resumption?
this is not a very good question for me.
Okay, I can go. Yeah, I think main thing here is we are not particularly targeting on like East Malaysia or West Malaysia, but I would say it's like more on the entire survey. Definitely, we think that not just East Malaysia, but generally overall the entire survey is actually not enough to support because the response is very less. But what we want to emphasize here is because of the survey is actually being launched in the start of the January, and then it's been 1 month. So I think to further validate whether your market is suitable for this entire product itself, that we will need your LC or the SU to be very aware to drive this survey before the end of second week of February, so that we're able to get the validation and to get the latest context for your GVs, for entire GV for your market. Yeah, but this is basically what we have right now. Okay, I think Brandon can answer the second question.
Okay, so I think for current OGV legality state-wise, like there is not much of the concern for legality, because OGV do not require any visa for us to send out the EP itself. And then for the second question, what are the entities in AP and EU that is running GV, IGV currently? I think that one Liangjun can answer.
I paste in the second slide, in slide 61, where that will be the current okay, that's the current entity that haven't resumed. But I think main thing is okay, you can see roughly like which are the entity that already resumed, which you can go into the GV data audit here, this link.
Yep. So my repeating one is the thought process of increasing PC from 30% to 37.5%. So in past term, like 30% is the rate that we actually invest, or like the operation that need to run the OGV, right? So hence when you change the pricing, and also when the macro environment have changed, certain of the material or even certain of the stuff will be also increased in price. Hence that is also lead into like increment of the product contribution for the investment towards any of the product that, I mean, for OG product to invest into LC for the operation wise. So MC do actually need to increase on the product contribution to run this product as well. And in slide 54, youth survey output for everything, the mode is 1,400 to 1. But has this taken into consideration the EP fee that youth need to pay to host entity? Is there a possibility that 1,400 and 1,600 is inclusive of host and also home entity payment? So I think this one maybe Liangjun can answer, because that one is OGV are the one that created the question.
Okay. Wait, I go through again. I think I go to second question after I go through. I will come back to this question again.
Okay. Yeah, so I think for Jeremy question, inside 52 pricing based on PPP is 737.84, Y inside 53 is 823 instead. 52 and 54.
53.
Oh, 53. Yeah, I think because of the conversion amount, like the date bar, and also when I use the tool, there is a change of, there is a several number of like converted, what's it called? Like there are few series of the conversion rate in the Excel. So this slide number 53 will be the most accurate data because it compare at least 1 to 2 years of the conversion rate. Yeah. So this analysis, pricing analysis on this slide itself is actually using the GFB that have several few months or few years data for the conversion. Whereas this data itself is just based on today's data. Yeah, today rates. Yeah. So if let's say you input this 158 tomorrow, it might be there might be another number, and then another day it will be another number. Yeah.
Hi, Liang Jun, do you need clarification for the question?
I know. I think I'm finding on the XPA website to show example.
Okay.
Okay. Wait, Brandon, you stop sharing your screen.
Okay, can.
Okay, so I think if you actually see current pricing is actually 600, right? So based on the current expat itself, if you actually see I just random click any opportunity, basically we'll see like the breakdown of like how is the price it actually looks like. For example, 600 will be the price that they need to pay like on exchange fee, which is basically the pricing that we actually included. The project fee will actually more towards the opportunity brigade, like what they need to pay for the IGV itself. So this will be the two breakdown that come to the total fee. And we are concentrating more on this part. Yeah.
Okay.
So just to clarify, the pricing model that we are discussing today is what the EPs need to pay to us, and then after that they have to pay another sum of fees to the hosting entity.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
I have a question. For the list of entities you shared just now, right? Do you know when did they resume, or is this like expected to be resumed in the coming summer?
I think for the list, which is I think based on the spreadsheet here, right? Basically, I think the slide is like list all those entities and not resume. So if you can go into this link, which is in the slide, this is all the entity that already been resumed, and whether or not the other entity that will be like not resumed, they wish to resume in upcoming peak. I think we don't have the context unless we start to contact IR, but we haven't started to contact IR until by March. We only will start to contact IR because of we will pass the audit. We only start to actually approach on them. But right now, I think we don't have the context of whether those entities not resume, will they resume in this peak? We just know like who will be, who already resumed. Yeah. Yeah, basically I think you can see if you want to see it from, because of we are OGV, so we are looking for those IGV, right? So green color here is actually all the, is it called Asia Pacific entity? Yeah.
Okay, so I think for now, right, why we actually propose to change the pricing like so urgently is also because like the pricing is also part of the audit. So if let's say we wouldn't be able to change the pricing, right, then eventually meaning that we will stick back to the 600 ringgit for external youth and also 300 for internal, which is membership. When so meaning that if let's say we want to change another pricing to 800 or even the 600 pricing, right, then we wouldn't be able to do that because in our companion itself, our youth the pricing that we are charging the EPs or even our membership is actually the price that should be from the audit itself. Compendium, sorry. So if let's say we charge more than that, then actually the externals or even when they know that we charge more than that, then they will actually go and complain to the ICB or even ECB. Then we actually will have legalities costs that we need to incur, which eventually LC need to bear for the risk. If we wouldn't pricing review or like to legislate the entire pricing. Hence, I think this is also a very important point that I need to bring to the entire NEB or even LCP to take note on like why this pricing is very important to discuss transparency here. And I think beside that, I think in our upcoming upcoming peak in summer, our main focus will be mainly on IXP, which is our internal membership to go for this what's it called, the exchange. Hence, I think the pricing why we are actually changing for both is because like no matter like what, we need to update the companion when we actually change the entire pricing. Yeah. For Liang Jun, you have anything to add on? I don't know. Maybe you can add some stuff if you have.
I think after, because I think right now is almost the end, and if y'all need more time to actually discuss, you can actually digest after that. But I think after this space, you might expect there will be a legislation between like NLM for the what is it called? For the NEB to actually vote for to see whether they want to actually we will change the entire pricing itself. And then after you legislate it, then this will be the things that we're going to work on for the entire GB generation. And for your LC, if you actually think that like if you actually wish to continue GB, regardless of you want to continue in this summer or like maybe in the next week, which is winter, I think it's still very important for you to actually start to do the research, which is like use as a youth research to actually validate whether your youth that side are actually able to support on the pricing, or what is the also to get on the entire value population analysis and what is the youth behavior to support on GB for your own local market. Yeah, that's also, I think, it's very important for you to actually understand your youth segment first before we actually choose to run GB in your own market. Yeah. Is there a duration limit for IXP? Let's say an alumni 5 to 6 years wish to join GB. Is he or she eligible to join IXP rate? This one, where from Brandon, do you know about these things? Like if very past alumni.
I think my understanding is that it's really based on LC because it is actually LC, what's it called? It's actually LC membership, right? So basically it's like case by case basis by LC. Yeah. Offering discount, yeah, definitely can provide discount. So under your GFB account there, I mean in your what's that called, in your GFB tool, then you can just plug it under the attraction there and then you put it under OGV discount fee. Yeah. Yeah, like how you do your early bird for your MYV and then you reduce their price, right? So there's an account for that for the MyV discount. So same goes to OGV, you can put the discount fee. Would like to ask, is the 800 is fixed or we still can discuss and change? Looking into the current context based on past data analysis and also based on the macro analysis, 800 seems like the most suitable kind of benchmark for the increment of the price. But definitely we're able to discuss and make changes accordingly. Yeah. This is not a definite pricing. Yeah.
Okay. Because just now, Brandon, you mentioning that yesterday midnight you already submit the OG audit, so like we thought like it's already fixed to 800, so meaning we
No.
still can change. Oh, okay.
We cannot put
Understand.
800. We haven't put 800. It's still 600. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's still
Understand. Thank
600.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank
the
you.
current pricing is in the national compendium. I think Liang Jun can show
Mm.
them. Yeah, the pricing.
Okay. I think for the pricing itself, because right now the current compendium we didn't change yet. When we submit the audit, we need to show the compendium. That's why we cannot submit 800 yet. That's why I think if you can see the entire timeline, right? For this one is the ICB audit timeline where we already submitted the first round, like which is on the application to the ICB by yesterday. And most ideally, after we have the feedback, we actually change everything, and that will be the last date for us to submit, which is on 15th of February. So all this entire process is a bit urgent, but we actually need to happen before 15th of February so that we can actually submit legally all these data and context that we wish to legislate.
Yeah, so in the event, if let's say on the 6th of February, we really pass the OGV audit, that means that if you want to run OGV, right, the pricing that for external youth will be 600 and then for IXP will be 300. So we cannot charge more than that price. Yeah, unless we able to legislate the new pricing, then we able to cash up to submit on the 15th of February. Then that will be the new pricing that we will be charging towards the youth, either like external or even our own membership.
I think with that, probably I will do a last sensing. If you have any question, I have no question, can send a word in the chat so that we can roughly know.
So what's the next step for us after this phase? Do we are we expecting ELM straight, or is there still a next consultancy space?
I think we can follow up with a next consultancy space if let's say the entire NEB or even like VPFL or VPOGV do see a concern on the pricing, so we can actually proceed on the consultancy. But I think would suggest that you guys to be proactively to approach us to have the next consultancy. Also like the objective stated, like what are the things that to be discussed. Then we will proceed to the next consultancy space, or else then we will be basically have an ELM then to proceed on whether to legislate this new pricing or not. Yeah.
Yeah. I think according to timeline, basically whether or not consultancy space going to happen, the ELM to happens by around which is like 11 or 12, which is basically the next week weekend, because of 15th of February is the last day that we need to submit. So that will be the time that we're able to amend to submit the feedback to ICB. Okay, cool. Others, you have any question? Okay. I think just to reemphasize again, I'm not so sure whether how much of all of us we actually understand all this context, because I think I understand that there are people who are newly elected who are still very new to all this finance thing. I think really suggest everyone of you all to actually read through the slide again and to fully understand the entire scenario and to approach it if you have any question, because I think after that there will be going to the ELM, which is the voting part, and those entities who actually have voting right, it will be discussing these things together in the entire what is it called NEB space to discuss, and then we can vote based on our understanding. Yeah, so make sure you all understand this entire slide. I'll send the output to you all after this space. Okay, so I think with that, that will be it for today OGV pricing model consultation. And thanks everyone for attending, and let's look forward for the GV generation. So yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.